you're born naked, you die naked, and in between it is what it is. And you need to live that consciously as you possibly can. Otherwise, I think there's consequences to action and inactions, and you just want to make sure that that there's not any untoward consequences that you created throughout that. When you go into a meditative state, that will make sense, right? Because there's a point that you reach when you meditate, and when you get to the end of that breath and that pause happens, you can stay at that pause for a very long time. Perception is projecting, as they say. You will project what you see. So if you see hate, you're going to project hate. If you see love, you're going to project love. But if you want to change from there to there, then you need to start looking through that lens.
Welcome everybody to another Martial Mind Power podcast. And on today's conversation, we're just going to go with the flow and see what happens. So with me, we have Sifu Lak. Sifu, how are you doing this week?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Welcome listeners and viewers to another episode of our Martial Mind Power podcast.
Cool.
And how are you doing?
All good, man, all good. So Lax, I'm intrigued. I just wanted to test something like live. It's probably not gonna work, right? But it might work. I don't know. Yeah, I've got a particular topic that I think I want to talk about today.
Oh yeah.
But I'm still gonna refer back to the mighty book of knowledge, right? To see if it randomly can get to the topic that I want to speak about, right?
Are you gonna share the topic before you do your flickety flick?
So what do you think we should do? Because I want to talk about the topic I want to talk about regardless, but I still want to test it out, see what happens.
So why don't you tell us what topic you want to talk about, and then you do your flickety flick and see, and maybe let's talk about that topic, and then you do your flicky job,
yeah,
and then we see where that lands,
yeah,
and see how that complements and supports your message.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good idea. So I want to talk about the art of dying today, right?
Oh,
yeah, definitely.
All right, good.
Interesting topic. It may make some people feel a bit uncomfortable with where we go with this, right? And it may inspire people, but I don't think people talk about it enough. So it'd be interesting. So let me just randomly kind of, I'm just like from the bottom, you can see I'm just randomly going. Actually, shout it out, Alex. Shout out, stop.
Stop.
Okay, there we go. So what we got? We got cosmic breath. It's turned up as the title, right? So cosmic breath. Good. Interesting. So when we breathe, we start from a moment of stillness, then inhale to expand our lungs and fill them with air. We then stop for another moment of stillness, then exhale to collapse our lungs whilst expelling air. That is sick. I can't believe it. How like when we talk about this, people realize like the power of that breath concept, yeah?
Yeah.
And how it links to, I feel, life and death anyway.
Well, the thing is that between every breath, there is a pause. There's that stillness that you just mentioned, right? So that's what the part of the cosmic breath is that pause. So when you physically breathe, that pause is a moment of non-existence, right? And a moment of dying as if you were, because you're not at that moment in time, you're not breathing, but you're just, you're existing, but not existing at the same time. And for some of you guys listen to this, you're going to say, what a pile of shit is that? What a crock, right? But when you go into a meditative state, that will make sense, right? Because there's a point that you reach when you meditate, and when you get to the end of that breath and that pause happens, you can stay at that pause for a very long time without the need to want to breathe at all. Okay. Now that is a heightened state of consciousness, right? When you get to that point, and that can take you years of practice This is not something you're going to just be able to do by, downloading an app and doing some breathwork exercises or mindfulness exercises. This is some heavy duty investment of time, effort, and energy in understanding and cultivating not just your mind, right, which is where the mindful element sits, but your spirit, and really connecting not just with yours, but your higher state of consciousness. And when that moment happens and you reach that point is what people would refer to as nirvana. And that also, you get to a point where you don't need to breathe anymore. You can just exist at that point. And there are rishis and swamis that meditate up in the Himalayan mountains in India, right? That haven't had a morsel of food, haven't had a drop of water, have been in deep samadhi, that means deep meditation, for years, right? Some people are known to have lived well over 1 century, if not several centuries, and they don't even eat. They don't, because they operate on cosmic energy. Okay, they operate on cosmic power, and therefore, when they sit there, they're not even breathing anymore. Right? So there is that point, but that is an elite level of mastery. Okay, that's spiritual mastery at a whole new level, right? And there's I see Guru Nanak, he went up into the Himalayan mountains once, and there's a beautiful story where he started speaking to these swamis and rishis, and he said, "Hey, what are you guys doing over here?" Right? And he said, "Oh, we're meditating, and we're connecting to a high state of consciousness and everything." And he said, "Well, you know what? There's loads of people out down there in the towns and villages and so on. They need your help. Stop hiding up here and keeping this all to yourself. Go out there and help everyone else." And this is what this work's all about, is really, although I've not had that, Himalayan pre-existence in this lifetime, it feels like, we're kind of connecting that vidya, that knowledge, that wisdom, and bringing it back down the mountains into the villages and the towns and the hamlets and the cities. So common people like me and you can understand this, because guess what? I didn't have anyone that guided me when I was younger, because I didn't know. The people around me didn't know. So I didn't get that guidance. I fell into it. And that was kind of my path, my dharmic path. It was meant to be that way, right?
Absolutely. So I was going to share on what you were just saying there about the cave, going into the caves and talking to the sadhus and all those people. One of our friends, dear friends, Suki, was once saying about something he profoundly said to me once. Was we were sitting down, we had a conversation, and he said, and he's talking about Guru Nanak in that format, right? And he said that he went out, spoke to these swamis, sadhus and whatnot, and said, exactly what he said, like, you're not sharing this information and knowledge with the world. You're sitting in a cave and not doing anything about it. And he said, Jats, if we have knowledge and information that we can share with the world and we don't share it, are we not doing the same thing as those sadhus? Like, exactly. It doesn't matter we're not in a cave or not, but if we're not sharing that information, are we not doing the same thing? And I had a moment where I thought, okay, breathing time. That's quite profound, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the cosmic breath, the pause in the breath is kind of, just kind of described the highest state of that breathlessness. Okay. And so that's that aspect of it. But then you've got the in breath and the out breath, the in breath and the out breath, right? So that's the other aspect of it, right? So when you breathe in, you expand. Okay. When you breathe out, you contract. You expand, you contract. You expand, you contract, and that happens all the time. Now the thing about the cosmic breath is one which is, this is going to blow your mind, right? And people talk about the Big Bang. Okay, the Big Bang, this from nothing, right? Or I'm going to say from nothingness, this event takes place where the universe expands out of that nothingness, right? And you now get these multiverses. Okay, within these multiverses, you've got universes. Within these universes, you've got galaxies. Within these galaxies, you've got solar systems. Within these solar systems, you've got planets and you've got moons and whatnot. And then within those, you've got, organisms living, right? And in those organisms, there's molecules, right? These cells, within the cells, there's molecules. Within the molecules, there's a nucleus. There's protons. There's neutrons. There's electrons. The electrons are the moons, right? The nucleus is like the planet. You go in deeper, and as you go further and further, you get into quasars, and beyond that, there's nothing again. Right. And so it's almost what I call the recursive universe is, what's outside's inside, what's inside's outside. You might have heard of the saying, as above, so below, as below, so above, something like that. And so it's basically saying, that I've always had a dream, a recurring dream. And that is when you get down to the smallest unit of existence, you end up with another multiverse. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of keep zooming in. And as you zoom out, it goes the other way, right? And it just keeps unfolding, right? So coming back, right, you've got this nothingness, you got the Big Bang, these multiverses are created, right? Recently, scientists have started talking about the Big Crunch. Right now, we've always known about this, right? In the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it talks about the nad. Nad is the breath, okay, or the cosmic sound, right? So what happens? The theory these scientists have come up with is that all of these multiverses will eventually collapse, into nothingness again. I mean, if you think about this, right? Even in, like I said, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, right, talks about the nad being cosmic breath or the cosmic sound. It starts from nothing, stillness, there's pause, it expands, all these multiverses, and then it contracts back to nothing, okay? And if you was to think about this Big Bang expanding and then the Big Crunch contracting and back into nothingness, that's one breath. Mm. One out breath, one in breath, one in breath, one out breath, right? One inhalation, one exhalation, okay? And if that's happening, then this cycle is infinite, right? And this, average life that we might have of however many years you may live, right? 80, 90, 100, whatever length of life you can enjoy and relish on this planet, is nothing in comparison to the magnitude of what's going on around us. But we're part of it. And so that's the cosmic breath. And it's a concept that, requires an expansive mindset to be able to scale yourself against that, because it's much bigger than us. But we're part of it. We're part of the expansion, and we're going to be part of the contraction. And even in Hinduism, they talk about Shiv, they talk about Vishnu, and they talk about Brahma, right? And you've got these three gods, and you've got the god of creation, you got the god of destruction, and then you got the god of, I think, is maintaining it as it is. And it's, again, if you look at those three aspects,
generator, operator, destroyer.
Yeah, exactly. Beautifully put, right? The generator, the operator, and the destroyer. And that is it. I mean, it is all describing the same thing, right? Are these people? No. There could be, right? I think there were people that existed on Mother Earth that possessed those energies of expansion, creation, operation, and destruction. And therefore, those energies give it physical life essentially, but it's more than physical life. And that's really what we need to understand is from an energetic level, it's something that can be felt, something that can be sensed, and something that can be experienced physically, right? But there's a whole lot more going on beyond the physicality of it all. So that's the cosmic breath, and it's we are part of each breath. Now, when you meditate, with each in breath, with each expansion, pause, contraction, pause, try and imagine that you are the universe expanding and it's just resting in complete stillness, right? Complete nirvana. It's just everything is where it is. And then a contraction, and again, the same again, right? And see what happens. You will notice this magnification of yourself and your not self. Your not self is what I refer to is your spiritual element, your subtle body. Okay. And there's, you might have heard of the word of the astral body. That's part of it. Okay. But it's bigger than that. Okay. And you'll kind of start to experience there's something odd but wonderful that happens when you start to expand far greater than, the body that you're in, the room that you're in, the house that you're in, or apartment that you're in, the building that you're in, the street that you're in, the town, the village town, or the city that you're in, the country that you're in, the world that you're in, the solar system that you're in, the galaxy that you're in, the universe that you're in, the multiverses that you're in, right? There's expansion. And if you can take that expansion so that it's infinite, you can feel that infiniteness within you. And that's something amazing.
Absolutely, man. Do you know what's like fascinating about all of that is that it's the idea of construction and destruction, right? It's the part of the universal concept of everything, because science talks about it all the time, that there are galaxies, solar systems that are being destroyed and created all the time out there, which we don't know about. And even though it takes millions of years for it to happen, right?
Yeah.
And relating it back to like you said, the breath, you're breathing in, you're breathing out, and then imagining that if you're here in the present moment, right, and you take that in breath, you've gone like this, and then you exhaling and you're going outwards, and like you said, imagine the location and the country and the your solar system, the universe, and you're taking all of that and then you bring it back in again, and you're going like this. It's like with your breath, right?
Yeah.
It's that construction and destruction element of it inbuilt into your breath system, right?
Yeah.
So that's like life and death, life and death, life and death, life and death, which is part of the game, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm just fascinated how this topic fits into the art of dying, right?
Well, you see, the art of dying is it comes from a Chinese proverb, right? And but if you look carefully at any ancient wisdom and traditional teachings, right, from any walk of life, and they'll talk about this, right? And ultimately, learning the art of dying, as it's called, or I refer to it as a game of death, as a little play on Bruce Lee's movie Game of Death. It's to understand, and there's various aspects to this, and it depends which element you want to focus on. But ultimately, it's about killing everything, metaphorically speaking, right? So you are now free of all attachment. And if you go back to Buddha's teaching, even Buddha stated, the source of all suffering is attachment. So in order to release suffering, you need to get rid of all the attachment. In other words, you need to kill all the things that you're holding on to, get rid of them. And that doesn't mean physically. I mean, it means mentally and spiritually. You now break the cord, okay, on a mental and spiritual level, not on a physical level. Okay. Therefore, now that thing can exist of its own right without you now being bound by that and the outcome that that might have. Because you might think you control the outcome, but actually, you know, we've just spoke about the cosmic breath, and you are insignificant, not even a speck of dust.
Yeah.
Right? You're not even a drop in an ocean. That's how small of this you are in the overall scheme of things. Therefore, in the magnitude of things, is there's a point where everything's happening, right? In you, outside of you, around you, right? Not to you, but for you. And as long as, and we were having a little catch up before this, and we were talking about how you've got to have intention, right? And you've got to invest the energy to move in a certain direction. Without that, nothing's going to really kind of get, you know, manifest, because you're not putting any energy into it. You're not putting your concentration, you're not putting intention into it. You've got to have the intention from your core that needs to go in that direction. You've got to make an effort towards that end. But it means letting go of the outcome of the end result, because you don't control that. You may think you do, but you don't. And this is where, you know, your luck comes into it. Now, there's different types of luck, right? You've got the luck that you create through the hard work that you do. Okay. Now that's the only thing that you can control. Now, if you get so caught up and attached to the result, guess what? You're going to stress yourself into the grave, right? And there's no point. Okay. So you've got to release that, right? You've got to learn the art of dying on that. And then you've got your environmental luck, okay? Your second luck. This is the luck in the space that you live in. Create a space with good feng shui, man, right? And good energy around you. You know, if you live in an area which is, you know, just full of bad vibes, do everything in your power to get out of there and put yourself in an area which has got good vibes, right? If you've got an environment, doesn't just mean your house and the neighborhood you live in. It means the company you keep as well, right? You become the company you keep. You know, there's a wonderful meme I read the other day where it kind of summed it all up, where it said, you know, and it was by I don't know whether it was Elon Musk or somebody quite successful and ambitious in that respect. And it said, you know, if you hang around with 5 millionaires, you'll be the sixth. If you hang around with 5 successful people, you'll be the sixth. If you hang around with, you know, 5 layabouts, you'll be the sixth. There's something to that extent. In other words, you know, you become and assimilate to that. So your environment also means the company you keep. And the third aspect is your cosmic luck. You cannot control that. You can do whatever you like, right? You cannot control that. You think, you know, maybe you'll meditate and you'll change that, the way things are going to happen. No, it's bigger than that, right? You think you can, you know, maybe do some spells, right? And change that. Because it's not going to change anything, not in the long scheme of things. Temporarily, it might have a little glitch, cause a little glitch in the system, but in the overall scheme of things, you can't. That's why it's called Dharma, right? It's your dharmic path. Is do you recognize it and get on it and then let it run its course? And that's really what's important. So it's important to recognize that aspect, and then, you know, once you've invested the intention, the energy, and the time and the resources to doing that, you just got to let it run. You just got to let it be. And I call it the jelly syndrome, right? You know, when you were a kid and you know, did you like jelly when you was a little kid?
Yeah, I used to have jelly as a kid, yeah.
Right, and did you love it? Do you love making it?
Yeah, it was all right. But I'm trying to remember the last time I had jelly.
Well, when I was a kid, I loved making jelly, right? But you know, the thing is, right? You boil the water, you put, you know, you cut up the jelly cubes, stick it in, and it just dissolves, and you mix it, and then you've just got this, you know, liquid essentially, with these jelly cubes that are now dissolved into it, and you need to put it in the fridge. Now, as a kid, you're excited because you want the jelly to be set, but every few minutes, you go in and you stick your finger in it and it's still wet. And because you keep opening the fridge door, a few hours later, you stick your finger in it, it's still wet because it's not getting a chance to set, because you keep opening the door and it's not cooling down. And the whole thing about the learning the art of dying is letting it go. Now you've made the effort, you've boiled the water, you've went out and bought the jelly, right? Cubes, you've cut it up, you've opened the packet, you cut it up, you put it in there, you let it dissolve, you mix it up, and you put it in the fridge. That's all you can do. And the next thing you need to do is wait patiently. Just let it do its thing. And then timed appropriately, if you just let it set, it will just set, right? And that's kind of really the best example, best metaphor I can give of how, you have to let go. You have to just let that thing sit inside that fridge. And the cosmos is a bit like that, You kind of put your effort into it, and then you just let go and let the jelly sit out there. Right, and then see what the end result looks like, But if you keep poking your finger in it every 5 minutes, you're kind of undoing your work in a way. So we were talking about this earlier, how with sharing the knowledge and the wisdom that we've been very fortunate enough to fall into, this wasn't a career choice. Let me say this, because I didn't know that this was a thing, to help people connect to a higher self. And nor did I have any inspirational people in my life that knew about this, that could guide me this way. It was meant to be this way because I fell into it, right? And here you are. So, you put stuff out there and you want to spread it far and wide. So is that the goal? Well, if that's my purpose in this planet, then it's my purpose. So my as I say, your purpose is not your goal. Your goal is your purpose. So I'm just fulfilling my purpose. Then I just let go, put it out there, and let the jelly set, and hope that it has a positive transformation on as many people as possible, because in the end, that's what this is about, and helping people connect to something greater within themselves, something more powerful within themselves, something that's going to help them be uplifted. And then they're going to go and uplift somebody else because something's awakened inside them. And that is something that you can't put a price on. That it's way beyond any monetary value. It's way beyond any material value. Is almost undescribable, okay? Because it's divine work. And that, I like to call it that, because it's your highest service. So this is why we do this.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. I mean, the kind of multiple meanings that can be derived from the art of dying, right? Because it can be looked at that way, like exactly what you said about the attachment, detachment, the thoughts that we have, which is probably one of the biggest challenges that we go through, because in life we get attached to lots of things and we don't realize that we get attached to our thoughts as well. Yeah. So letting go of the thoughts is like, the art of dying, killing it off, letting it flow, as you said. But then you also have, the art of dying, which is to do with life and death kind of element, because we know, everybody knows this, that if you're born, then one day we're going to pass away, right? But for some reason, we're taught in society and culture that it's a bad thing, and that is seen as a negative, and everybody's trying to do everything to live long and all this which is fine, which is absolutely, the goal of things in a way as well. But then that element that, that one day we are going to go, right? We're not here forever. And everything that we have here is just going to be left behind anyway. Yeah. And that is going to be inspiring for some and is going to be sad for others. Yeah. And if we're being sad by it, are we attached to the thought of it then? Yeah. So it's an interesting conversation, a very challenging conversation, because people don't really talk about it, but we see it going on all the time. And it's not a case of right or wrong or anything. It just is, like, in the sense that it's going to happen in some form or another, right?
Yeah.
We don't always know what it is. So it's got that double meaning to it, which I find really fascinating. And I think it's, just to even have a conversation about it, even if it helps people in some way to think, hang on a minute, this is the way of the world, this is the way of the universe. That's how it works, from the breath, from the moment of inhaling, exhaling, construction, destruction, life and death, attachment, detachment. It's kind of linked in a way, right? There's a pattern there. So then it becomes about, well, how do we, go about living life in a way where we can be more in line with you, like you said, with more of a higher self and in flow. And that's what we're doing these conversations, because in some way or another, we're hoping that, you could take something from it. Take what's useful, right? Take what's useful.
Absolutely. Do you know, the thing is that you've said something interesting there, is like how can you prepare yourself to accept death, right? Now, I'd like to give an analogy about martial arts. Okay. So if you go into a martial arts, let's just say you're in a competition, right? You go into competition with the idea, attachment to win. That means you've got something to lose, right? That means losing is a possibility. And the possibility of losing is the thing that scares people the most, right? And that's what tends to break people down psychologically, okay? But what if you accepted defeat? What if you accepted death before you entered the arena, right? Then what? Then there's nothing to lose, because you've accepted it as the outcome, right? So you surrender to loss, you surrender to death, right? Then what's left to do? And the secret is, what's left to do is to do the best that you can, because that's all you've got. There is nothing else. There never was anything else. Everything else was just an illusion, right? So that changes everything. Now, I wanted to give you a martial arts example, because that's where this whole idea was born. But we started up there, and now we're bringing it back down, right? So you can understand that. But then you mentioned the other aspect of life and death, and accepting that on a physical level. So my father he's always said this, and my father's a fantastic man. He always worked really hard for us. Always wanted to give us the best environment to help to raise his 3 children, including me, and so he worked very hard. He started from nothing, just worked hard, and made sure that he provided, moved us into a house and home in a good area, which was safe and comfortable for us to grow up in. And really, that environment changed everything, because the environment that we lived in before that move, when I was about I think 11 years old, wouldn't have had a positive outcome on me, and probably wouldn't have been in a position where I would have been kind of able to kind of direct my attention towards self-cultivation academically and so on. So he knew that then, and he used to say to me, he said, so he wasn't kind of driven by having lots of money and loads of possessions. He realized the value of having a house and a home in a good environment, in a good area, where his kids could be nurtured in a positive way. That was really important to him. And he always said to me, he's like, and my dad, honestly, he is, and I don't really talk about my dad much publicly, but quite a private person, but I think this is important. And he said to me, he's the best salesperson I've ever met. And the one thing that he does have really had a passion for back in the day, which I think is lost now to a certain degree, but he really loved cars. right? And when he was buying or selling a car, and he wasn't a trader, but when he did want to buy a car, he was honestly, I've never seen anybody, right, haggle and negotiate as good as he could. I mean, the person, if he was buying something, they would just give up in the end and just say, just take it. I can't do this anymore. And every time it'd get to that point, because he was just so brilliant at doing this. And I said, Dad, why don't you, start a business and, you'd be great at it, And he said, Lak, he goes, I don't want a business because I don't want the headache, right? He goes, look, you need to remember this, right? Right. And my dad, a lot of his friends were millionaires because they all, came at the same time from India. And some of his friends, a small group of his friends, started factories, and they did a lot of clothing manufacturing. And so they were there. A lot of them were very successful back in the day. And I said, well, why don't you do something? You'd be great at it because, I think personally, you're sharper than they are, and you've got it, if they can do it, you can definitely do it. They just said, look, in the end, right, we all eat the same food, right? There's no real difference in the food, right? And his friends were eating home cooked Indian food, and so were we, right? So it was the same, right? There was no difference in that. And he said, look, you need to remember, right? You're born naked, right? And you're gonna die naked, right? And in between, whatever there is whatever there is, right? And that's it. So make that count, right? And make of it what you will. But in his lifetime, and he's still with us, and he's healthy. He just wanted to have a comfortable life where he worked, and then he could switch off and enjoy his time with the family and with his friends and so on. And that was it. And that was quite a liberating experience. And when he retired, it's interesting. My brother said to my father, he said, because Dad, why don't you get a job? Because he'd been off for, he'd been retired for a year or so. And I think he was kind of more afraid that, if he retired, he'd just kind of like decay. Because you do see that with retirees. And he just said to my brother, he said, look, what you need to realize is I've worked all my life. Now it's time to relax and chill out and do what I want, and it was a wonderful, kind of realization that, yes, you can take it easy. But the key lesson is that, you're born naked, you die naked, and in between it is what it is. And, you need to live that consciously as you possibly can. Otherwise, I think, there's consequences to action and inactions, and you just want to make sure that that there's not any untoward consequences that you created throughout that. But the one thing that we need to accept is the moment you're born to die. And most people are made afraid of death because they associate death with loss. They associate death with grief. They associate death with pain and suffering. Okay. And yes, all of those things are true, right? But if you truly knew the reason you arrived on this planet, if you truly knew why you came here and what you came here to do, or even not to do, because that's also a thing. Sometimes you're meant not to do something because it's one of your cosmic lessons. Then death is welcome because you know your purpose. You know what you're here to do, and you just live that out. So this bit in the middle becomes about fulfilling that. And therefore the end, right, of this physical body, which you're going to shed, is a welcome point. Okay. If I'll put it that way. And therefore the people that are around you should also understand that, because it changes the way you look at death. And death is celebrated in many cultures, okay, rather than commiserated. But in more cultures, it's commiserated than it is celebrated. And if you have somebody that's known their purpose and they fulfill their purpose within this lifetime, then the end is it's amazing. It is a complete celebration of the contribution and service that that person's provided in this lifetime. But only the self is really, only you will know that. And you'll kind of be at peace with that point. But the moment you know, you kind of, in a weird but wonderful way, want it to come. Right. But then it just arrives when it needs to come. Right. So you don't force that idea. You don't push that. It's a natural course. So you just write it out. So just hopefully that kind of adds a different perspective on death and allows you to embrace death. But, the death when anything dies, something else is born. Okay. Now,
they say, don't they? They say that nothing's ever lost; it just changes form, and that's true in science as well. Like nothing, energy transforms. It could be in what shape and form we just don't know, right? Yeah. So what you're saying there is in line with that.
Well, look, you take a block of metal, right? Let's just say, right? Gold color, right, is made of gold molecules, right? Or element gold, right? So atoms of gold, sorry. And within the atoms, again, same thing. You got a nucleus, and you've got the electrons, and the space between the nucleus to the electrons is the same ratio as Mother Earth is to its moon. So most of the thing between those two is just space. Mm-hmm. So most of this, for instance, is just space. And the reason I use metal is because people identify metal as being as one of the solids of solidy things, right? All right. So technically, actually, most of this is just space, and it's held together with an invisible energy, right? Magnetic energies, magnetic forces, and so on, right? That are invisible to the eye. Invisible to the self, but give you the perception that it's solid, right? But really, we're just energy, right, being held together.
Turn up the heat, it will melt. It becomes liquid, and keep that heat going, and it'll just eventually evaporate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Its form just changes from from solid to liquid to gas.
Yeah,
vice versa.
So my point being is we're just energy in the end. So if you have ever been fortunate or unfortunate enough to see somebody pass away, right, you'll notice there's a point where they're gone. Their body's still there, but they're gone, right? Why do people say they're gone? Because something's just now left, right? The energetic body's left, right? If we were to kind of put a bit more specificity around describing that or definition around that, the spirit's gone, the soul is gone, right? So now it's just the carcass is left, the flesh is left, the body is left, the clothing is left, right? So now that moves on, and then that can be the source of a new life, or it can be the source of being dissolved back into the ocean of consciousness. And in Sanskrit they call it moksha, right? Which is liberation of the soul back into the super consciousness. So there is that element, right? There is that possibility that that could happen. So when anything dies, there is a new beginning, right? Just want to share one of my personal experiences, and this is just my personal experience, and each to their own. Some of you might have noticed a similar pattern, but I've always noticed when there's a new baby about to be born, somebody dies in the family somewhere, right? Somewhere in the family, someone will pass away, right? And it might be a few months before. Um, and there is, a kind of a belief in Indian culture that, when somebody dies, they come back, in a different form. And sometimes they say, oh, so and so died. That person's come back, and that's how the spirit move kind of continues. And you tend to most spirits do tend to kind of come back to the families in a different relationship, in a different form, to to what they were before, obviously, because now they don't have that form anymore. And there might have been a grandma in one lifetime, and next lifetime it's a granddaughter or a grandson or something. So there is that aspect of it, but that's my experience and my understanding, and so that I can talk from that. But it'd be interesting to see like what people are kind of feel and experienced in their own lifetimes. And most importantly of all, if you haven't, then maybe just kind of be aware of it and just see what's happening around in that family environment, and maybe you'll notice a pattern, maybe you won't. And
yeah, so it's so fascinating. Like it's got so many kind of angles to it, right? It's like there's like kind of sadness about it, happiness about it. There's accidental stuff about it. There's there's so many different thoughts out there about this topic. It could go in any direction, right? And we're not saying any one thought is right or wrong or anything. We're just having a conversation around it, because obviously the atheists out there are going to be like, what are these two talking about, right? And then the other people who believe in transmigration of soul and reincarnation are going to be like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So there's always two angles to it, which could, if you're looking at one way, could work out to the whole kind of yin yang side of it, where there's going to be an element which you believe it, there's going to be an element that don't believe it, and that's what makes the world go around, and that's what's so fascinating about it. So either side you're on, you're part of the equation, because without the other you wouldn't know the other. So
exactly,
it's such a fascinating topic and idea to talk about it. And obviously there's kind of like a bad route that goes out there, which the people deliberately causing destruction and pain and all these kind of things, which isn't nice in itself. And humanity has to work together on these kind of issues of the side of it. But we're talking about more of the natural aspect of it, that if you're coming into this world, one day we're going to go, right?
Exactly.
It's objective. And whatever we do is the meaning we've created in that dash, as they say, right? Between this year and this year, right? So it comes back to that thing about, we're here. If we've got knowledge and information, we should share it, because if we're not sharing it, we're no better than the sadhus who may be acquiring this information and then using it for themselves without the benefit for everybody else to obviously elevate as well. So I think it's a good idea to at least have a conversation about it. Whether you believe it or not, it doesn't really matter, because having an open mind to something is better than having a closed mind, I feel. It's just sharing that information, having conversations opens dialogue to good communication, I feel.
No, you're 100% right. And I want to pick you up on something. You use the word believe. Now, the thing is, a lot of people use the word believe quite casually. Now, believe is a word that basically implies that you actually don't know. Okay. You don't understand through experience. Okay. That means it's something that you think might happen, right? Based on your firm ideas and concepts around that topic, which is what
which also form part of what you said, the attachment of the thoughts and stuff, based on the construct of how it's all built throughout your experience, right?
Absolutely. So on one side you've got belief, but this is not knowing. It's speculation to a certain degree, because you don't know for sure. That's why you believe it, right? On the other side, there is knowing and understanding. Knowing something is the knowledge aspect of things. Now, that is is not what I'm referring to. What I'm talking about is really knowing, is understanding deeply. And there's one of the koans in the book is which talks about known, unknown, unknowable. Known is the things that you've learned already, okay, knowledge, okay, but that you know what those things are. Then there's the unknown. These are things that you don't know, but you can learn. And then these unknowable, these are that things that you'll never know. You don't even know they're unknown, and you'll never really be able to describe them. Okay.
Just another angle on that. You said you know what you know. There's things you know, there's things you don't know, and then there's things you don't know that you don't know.
That's right. That's right. So coming back to belief and experience and knowing pure through deep, personal experience is a whole different thing. Now, the reason I'm making a point about this is the comments that I'm making here, right? They are through experience. This is not a belief. This is not speculation. This is things that I've experienced. I'm talking from a first-hand experience here, right? Through my journey of physical, mental, and spiritual cultivation, right? And insights, things and experiences that I've had from a child that I didn't understand, didn't make sense until 10 years ago, until 4.5, 5 years ago, right? When I truly woke up, right? And that's why I'm sharing this. I wouldn't have talked about this, if it was over 4.5 or 5 years ago, almost. No, it's 5 years ago now. If it was earlier than that, I wouldn't have talked about this because I had no idea, right? And it was all based on speculation and belief and theory and academia, but that means nothing, because are the people that are writing those materials, are they writing from experience? Well, if they are, then that's good. But you need to experience it, fully embody that in order for you to fully understand it, to fully know it, okay? Right? And knowing and knowledge are different. Remember that, okay? You can read 100 books and you're still not going to have this, right? That still fuels your belief, right? So this is why knowledge is not absolute, okay? You need to experience it. So that takes me to...
it's those kind of, for people who might be thinking, well, how do you go from belief to knowing kind of thing, right? It's almost those moments where, yeah, like you said, you know it academically. And one day through experience, something may happen where you think, oh, now I get it. That's probably the best way to describe it, right? It's because you could share something with someone, and because they haven't had the experience of it, they're not really going to know what you're talking about. They could kind of get the idea of it, but they won't really get it kind of thing. It's only those moments when they sit down and something just happens where it's like a sense of relief, a calmness, a peaceful present moment to some degree, where you think, oh, that's what that thing means. Now I get it.
Exactly.
It's one of those moments, which is... watch out for them. They're interesting moments.
Well, this is where I like to drop a Bruce Lee wisdom bomb. Okay. This whole thing's about wisdom bombs, right? As in, like, things that are going to blow your mind and expand your mind in a positive, constructive, transformational way. And if it doesn't serve you that way, then this next comment, right, or this next piece of wisdom I want to share with you, hopefully will help you. In Sanskrit, there's two words, avidya and vidya. Now, I mentioned vidya before, okay? Avidya means ignorance, okay? Now, I'm not saying there's people out there that are ignorant and
it's just that you don't know what
dumb
you
and
know.
stupid, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, what do you say?
It's just that element of what you don't know, you don't know.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's what vidya means, right? It means that you don't know. You don't know. Therefore, you are ignorant to that. Not because you're purposefully trying to be a bigot or something like that, right? Is you just don't know.
Yeah.
Bless your heart. You just don't know. Okay. So you live in a vidya. You live under an illusion. Okay. And that is not of your making. It just happens to be, that's what's created around you. And you start to believe that's your reality. Okay. That's avidya. The other part of it is avidya. Now, vidya is if it's directly translated, it translates into knowledge, but it's not knowledge. It's knowing, it's experience, it's understanding, it's having been there and done that. This is where I want to drop a Bruce Lee a wisdom bomb, which is Bruce talked about this idea of knowing is not enough, one must apply. Willing is not enough, one must do. That's the secret to going from that to that. You said, how do you get, you asked me the question, how do you go from ignorance to experience? Well, that is it. Knowing is not enough, one must apply. That's taking knowledge and start to find ways to apply that knowledge into your life, okay? Or whichever application it needs to be applied to. So knowing is not enough, one must apply. Willing is not enough, one must do. You could have all the will in the world. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. If you actually don't do it, it's useless.
Exactly.
You need to do the work. And this is what I think a lot of people don't understand, that just because you got the will to do something doesn't mean it's just going to kind of magically appear. That jelly is not going to put yourself in the fridge and just, magically end up in there. And all of a sudden you got to do the work. You got to freaking go out there. You got to get the bowl. You got to heat the hot water. You got to buy the packet of jelly. You got to, you got to take that packet off, wrapper off. You got to cut up the cubes, put it in the bowl of hot water, mix it up, and then stick it in the damn fridge, right? You got to do the work. That's your doing, right? Knowing is knowing that you need to follow those steps. Applying is going out and, making preparations to find out which jelly do you want to buy and which bowl, are you going to use. Yeah. Willing is, yes, I'm ready to make some jelly, right? I really want to make jelly now, and I need jelly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I need jelly, right? And then you got to go and do it. Just make it, right? And then leave it alone. Learn the art of time. Let it sit in the fridge. Come back 2-3 hours later, and it'll be ready, right? So yeah, funnily enough, it comes all the way back to jelly, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say the secret to life is jelly.
yeah, I know. For those of you out there that don't eat jelly because of the
gluten and
ingredients, right? This is not a vegan podcast, and it's not here to offend you guys. It's just a metaphor, okay? Just
replace jelly for anything. Just replace it for falafel or anything that you want to make.
You can replace jelly with making ice lollies.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, there you go. Right, use ice lollies, right, with environmentally friendly, fruit concentrate or whatever you want to use, or fresh fruits, or
definitely.
Right, but you get the idea. Just take I hope our listeners and viewers take this with love, because that's what it's intended to be for, right? If the ultimate expression is love, and I've experienced it, it is, and it's it's quite difficult to always be in a state of love when there is a world full of different emotions out there, and sometimes is opposite to love, right? So if you're in an environment where you're operating in a space where it's opposite to love, let's just call it hate, right? And negative emotions, right, which are opposite to that, which are anger and resentment and contempt and all of these kind of horrible negative emotions, right, that will kind of eat you from the inside. It's hard to stay in a state of love all the time, okay, because you need to maintain that state. But if love is the all-encompassing highest emotion, the highest vibration, then we need to find the love in all the sources of all of these things, right? And it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge. It's a challenge that you've got to keep practicing. So take this with love, because those people that are in that context are going to see everything through that lens. But what if you looked at it from this lens? So one of the things that when I was kind of going through this process myself, I'd picked up a teaching, a wisdom bomb back then, and that wisdom bomb was: ask yourself, what would love do? And quite often I find myself initially when I was practicing this quite frustrated. I don't know what's love going to do. What would love do? And then over time, I started seeing the love in people's actions and why they were doing the things they were doing. So people tend to operate from where they are, right? And is perception is projection, as they say. You will project what you see. So if you see hate, you're going to project hate. If you see love, you're going to project love. But if you want to change from there to there, then you need to start, looking through that lens.
Yeah.
And just start to have a little play with that concept. And, as I say, rose tint, you can wear the rose tint glasses, everything does look better through rose tint glasses. So put them on once in a while and see how beautiful the world looks momentarily, until you're happy to keep them on all the time. But it's practice, guys. It takes work. If you want to be a better version of you, then you've got to work on it. There's no quick fix secret formula. And for as much mindfulness, 3-minute mindfulness exercises out there and so on, it's not going to cut it. This is a lifelong practice, all right? And it's going to take you years. So, and this is why something like a book like this, is born, and the rest, because there's a lot to be achieved and a lot to be revealed within you. But I wish everybody will feel that light, to feel that that love, because when you start to kind of sense that, it changes everything. It changes everything, and you don't want to be that anymore. But sometimes you'll recognize why people are the way that way, and you might even start to want to help them. Okay, and you might want to start to change that, not forcibly, but with their consent, with their admission to want to change. Absolutely. All change happens from within, and it's got to happen with consent. So, as I say, all help is self-help, and you have to start with yourself. So just be mindful of that. I think it's the most valuable teaching, is that you have to decide that there's change that needs to be made.
Absolutely, man. That's been fantastic. We've spoken about so many things about, train your body, train your brain. We've talking about life and death, from breath to inhaling, exhaling, and to the way we think about things, right? It's been a fascinating conversation. Lax, I just wanted to share another, what did you call it earlier on?
Wisdom bomb.
Wisdom bomb, that's it. Wisdom bomb from Bruce Lee, which I think sums up this whole conversation quite nicely, right? So one of these powerful quotes is, like everyone else, you want to learn the way to win, but never to accept the way to lose, to accept defeat. To learn to die is to be liberated from it. So when tomorrow comes, you must free your ambitious mind and learn the art of dying.
Nothing.
We had a moment of stillness there.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, do you want to add anything on that before we sign off?
No, I think you did it. It's all done. It's all done.
Thank you very much, Lax. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and join us on the next podcast. So until then, keep dropping those wisdom bombs and keep learning, applying, and doing and being. So all the best to you, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.